parking fees even for special events.
Because I know there's several things that are scheduled for the River Center between now and December 31, and I just wanted to make sure that we're...
Sure.
I was having a conversation with the executive director at the River Center in the last couple of days. Is he aware of
Yes.
this intent?
In fact, I had a conversation. He called me on Sunday because they had the military band there, and the vendor was set up to collect. And so we got on the phone with the vendor and told him that's a free event, and we were not going to have special event parking fees. And so the vendor packed up and left. And so, and we'll continue to monitor November, December time frame, and if there are free events down there, we will not allow them to set up and charge parking fees, but we've got to give them a 60-day written notice per their agreement when there's an event down there where people are being charged to go to that event, such as at the River Center.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right, we have Councilor Davis.
Mr. City Manager, I don't have a problem with this, but it does become an expenditure. So you've got that part of it covered, right?
What becomes an expenditure?
Well, there's no longer any revenue coming to the city out of this, right?
Well,
So
yes. Actually,
we now have to cover that.
well, let me
Right.
just say this. We've been discussing the subject of no parking fees for parking garage for more than a year. And the one thing that I wanted to do, and we were able to accomplish it with you, we increased the parking fine from $30 to $40 to cover the revenue that we would lose if you decided to go with no parking fees.
Well, please don't tell me you're going to get aggressive with giving parking tickets out.
Well, no, we're not getting aggressive. People who
Okay.
get parking fees will be charged.
There's a lot of parking tickets.
They're
that come around.
they're charged $40 instead of the $30, and that was approved as part of the budget process. And then if they don't pay them in a timely fashion, the fees double. And so we knew, based on collecting $10,000 in parking revenue, that we would gain that revenue that we would lose back through that increased parking fee.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that strategy, because I've gotten some of those tickets, and I don't like paying them.
Well, and we don't want people to violate.
I don't know if I like breaking even in such a way, but
Well-
I guess you've got it covered. It's an expenditure
Oh, it's
back
covered,
into...
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we covered it. And our people are no more aggressive today than they were before the fines, the parking fees fines were increased. And, but we knew that we needed to get to this point to make Uptown work.
Okay, we've got Councilor Thomas.
And Councilor Davis, I would just remind you that the fees that we received for the daytime parking, the $2, was $3,300 a year, and the fees that we received for the evening, $4, was $4,400 a year. So it was a little less than, it was a little over $7,000 a year that we're talking about. And if you're doing $7,000 worth of parking tickets, we can, cover that.
Well,
All right. I think we're done with discussion, so I'll cue it to vote. Please record your votes electronically. All right, and it does pass.
Madam Mayor, we've got donations for speaker for Up and Motivated Conference 2017, and we're asking you to allow us to accept donations.
We've got a motion and second for approval for the donations for the Speaker Up and Motivated Conference 2017. There being no discussion, I'll cue that for voting.
Yes.
All right, and it does pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if we do get that particular speaker, it's very worth listening and coming.
On the purchases, I've got, these are replacement vehicles, 4 replacement flatbed dump trucks for street division. We've got the $39,688. For two of them, at $79,376, and then we've got two more at one at $39,875 and another at $41,471. Total price $160,722 from the Georgia State contract. They're replacement vehicles.
Okay, so this is item A, flatbed dump trucks. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? Okay. Did you just call A?
I
Okay.
just did
Okay,
A.
recommend A and B.
Okay, we've got a motion for A and B. I think that's Counselor Davis with a second.
C. They're all replacement vehicles on A, B, and C.
Through C.
Okay, items A, B, and C. A motion to approve. There's no further discussion, and so I'll cue A, B, and C for voting. All right, and it passes.
D, got traffic safety equipment. It's an annual contract on an as-needed basis. Total estimated contract, $67,185.64. And this is for barricades, barricade lights, traffic cones, as such.
Got a motion and second to approve item, is that item?
D.
D, yeah, item D, traffic safety equipment. There being no discussion, please record your votes electronically. All right, and it does pass.
Got Fall Line Trace River Link. It's asking to execute construction contract with Southeastern Site Development, Inc. It's $1.8 million for the construction of the Fall Line Trace River Link, and that is to get it from up by the Medical Center on 10th all the way down to the 14th Street Bridge. You know, we brought those projects to you several weeks ago, and that included Martin Luther King. It was $16 million worth of projects, and there were multiple projects. This was one of those.
All right, we've got a motion. Is there a second for the Fall Line Trace River Link? Seeing that there's no discussion, please record your votes electronically. All right, and it does pass.
Got auctioneer services for Evans Auctioneering. We do it on an annual basis, as you know, and we're asking your approval to allow us to move forward with this auctioneer company.
Okay, we've got a motion second for approval. Seeing that there's no discussion, please record your votes electronically. And it passes.
We've got surplus equipment that will be sold in that auction. We're asking you to declare this equipment surplus to allow us to move forward with sale, and anything that becomes surplus between now and the auction would go along with the auction sales. Asking your approval.
Move approval. Is that money covered going to the budget?
Yes.
All right, we've got a motion and second for approval. There's no discussion, so we will cue it for voting. And it does pass.
I've got a stump grinder with tracks and trailer. It's a replacement vehicle. It's $55,938. And we're asking your approval from Vermeer Southeast Sales and Services.
All right, we've got a motion and second for approval. Seeing that there's no discussion, it is queued for voting. All right, and, okay, I just want to make sure, okay, there's one negative vote, okay, and it does pass.
Got juvenile drug court treatment providers.
Second.
Got a motion and second for approval. Seeing that there's no discussion, it is queued for voting. And it passes.
And Madam Mayor and Council, I'm going to just go through quickly the legislative agenda. I'm not getting into details tonight. We're not asking for a vote tonight. When we come back on at the next business meeting, we will be asking you to vote on each of these items individually. In the meantime, if there are things that you want to add to the agenda, you can do them between now and the meeting where we will be voting, and even after that, if you have some things that come up before the legislative session, you'll be able to vote. And this is just to kind of read into the record to let you know what's on the agenda. I was going to go through them, but I'm just going to let you know because I know that we've been here a while. The first one is the 911 surcharge increase. That's been on for a number of years, and it's back on. What we get on landline and wireless just does not cover the cost, and we're putting it back on. We've got court costs and recorder's court. We've had that discussion before where he wants a fee of $25. We've got the sales tax accountability and transparency user safeguard, which we refer to as point of sale data.
And Mr. City Manager, let me just say that if council, while they're looking at this, if they would like us to take that off so that our agenda is not so full, that is more an administrative probably type thing that we need to speak with the Revenue Commissioner and the Governor and continue those lines of discussion than actually having legislation posed. So I just throw that out for council if you're looking for a way to lessen the load of the legislative agenda so it's more effective. That could be one that we just pursue administratively. So just make a note of that as you consider it.
And the fourth item would be repeal local population provision contained in alcohol beverage code pertaining to measurement of prohibited locations. And this would simply repeal the paragraph which provides a different method of measurement for alcohol establishments to prohibit locations for counties having a population between 175 and 195,000. Then we've got the Georgia Open Carry law, where the Trade Center they've had some concerns with House Bill 60. As it currently stands, the law allows anyone to bring a firearm into a public assembly venue, and they are asking that if a customer leases the space for private events, they're concerned that they don't have the ability to prohibit guns at their event. And so that was asked for by the Trade Center. We've got casino gambling referendum, and it's requesting the legislative delegation introduce and or support legislation to authorize a referendum to allow Georgia citizens to vote as to whether they want to allow casino gaming in Georgia for the purpose of Hope Scholarship funding. And I didn't call off the counselors' names or who asked for these, but we'll do that at the next meeting. We've got Peach Care for Kids. We had a discussion at council on that. Law enforcement issues, and I will just take a second to note some of these so that it's clear in the community what this is. But it's requesting that the legislative delegation introduce general legislation at the 2017 session to implement one or more of the recommendations contained below. And one would be require all law enforcement agencies within the state of Georgia to meet best practices of the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. That's CALEA, as we know it, CALEA. Require any future fatal officer-involved shooting within the state of Georgia be investigated by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Require any future fatal officer shooter within the state of Georgia be reviewed and or prosecuted by a district attorney outside the jurisdiction of the shooting. Require the compilation and maintenance of data on officer-involved shootings in all Georgia jurisdictions. Require all incident video footage of any officer-involved shooting to be subject to the Georgia Open Records Act, regardless of pending review or investigation, absent court order protection. Convene a bipartisan legislative commission to review and report on law enforcement immunity statutes in Georgia and the need for any legislative amendments or adjustments. So those are the 6 points in that request. Then we have tax reform, key principles of local taxation, to ensure that Georgia has a balanced and equitable system of taxation. We've got home and community-based services, and this is simply saying that funding received from the Older Americans Act along with state funding are not keeping pace with the increasing needs of the senior population. There's a need of continued funding for long-term care, ombudsman program, those kinds of things. We got hotel motel tax, requesting that the legislative delegation introduce legislation to amend the law so that it only applies to local option sales tax referenda held after January 1, 2011, leaving the original 2 exemptions contained in our 2004 legislation in place in Columbus. And that was requested by Councilor Henderson. Repeal of hotel destination fee imposed by House Bill 106 in the 2015 session, and that was where there was a $5 per night fee on hotel lodging as part of the transportation funding plan enacted with House Bill 170. Of course, we know that where communities border other states like we do, Alabama, it puts us at an unfair advantage, and so we're asking for that. Personal transportation vehicles, that's PTVs. We, as you know, enacted an ordinance allowing the use of PTVs on certain designated streets in Uptown, and due to state law restrictions, registration was only, we were only able to, they required 5 years, and we think it should be more often, such as every year. And so we were asked to put that on. Local governing authorities have to review and issue certain building permits. There's a bill that has been dropped, although not acted on. It's Senate Bill 437. There's a requesting to reduce the timeline for building permits and giving the applicant an opportunity to use private plan review to approve construction plans. In other words, it's saying we need to do it in 15 days instead of the 30 days, and that just places a burden on us to be able to do that, and it threatens the integrity of our process. We're concerned about it. Number 15, amendment of conflict of interest provision for redevelopment powers law. We've talked about that, where elected and appointed officials can't do certain things, can't own property, can't be involved, and we want to ask for clarification of that law as it relates to TADs, as we know them, tax allocation districts, but redevelopment powers. The number 16, ensure that constitutional officers pay their own attorney's fees when filing suit against their county governing authority. We're asking for clarification from the General Assembly to ensure that constitutional officers may not create the conflict and make use of the statute to sue the governing authority and force it to pay the attorney's fees without any safeguard to the public coffers. And that was asked for by Councilor Henderson. Legislation, number 17, legislation imposing restrictions on step therapy, fail first protocols. Step therapy is also known as fail first policies, or insurance practices which require the least expensive drug in any class to be prescribed to a patient first, even if the patient's physician believes a different therapy is medically in the best interest of their condition. And so that was asked for by Councilor Barnes, and so we'll be bringing that back and explaining it in further detail. Those are the 17 things currently listed. There may be some other things that you're interested in. Let us know, but at the next business meeting, we will go through those in detail and ask you to vote on them individually at the next meeting.
All right.
And so that hopefully gives the public a chance to know what's on the agenda, what's coming that you're going to be asked to vote on, and you'll be prepared, of course, to vote up or down on each of those at the next meeting. That's it for that subject, Madam Mayor, unless there are questions.
Is this published on the website, the Mayor Pro Tem would like to know?
We can publish it on the website.
Okay. Is it on ECAP?
It's in
It's on ECAP.
ECAP, but not on the website.
Why don't we just put it on ECAP? You want to do that? Okay.
On
At least-
website?
And on ECAP, that way it's in a context. If we put it on the website, people might not know
Okay.
why it's on there, and
Okay.
it's just a draft.
Good.
So let's do that. We have Counselor Davis.
Manager, I know that you might have got an email today about some additional requests to go on the list as well. They're not on here, but I just want to make sure they've been submitted.
I do have those, and very quickly, it would be amend state law to provide hotel tax relief to evacuees of storms or hurricanes when a state emergency is declared. Amend Title 36 to ensure that constitutional officers operate within budgets provided by the local governing authority. Amend state health department rules to provide that local governing authorities may waive certain safety rules for one-time events or meets. Amend state law to provide that all elected officials, including constitutional officers, be elected on nonpartisan primary ballots. And so,
Okay.
if
and-
those you want to be added, then we
Yes,
can
sir.
work on them. You do?
Yes, sir. I do personally, I'm not sure, are we going to go through these one by one again and have discussion on them?
Yes. At
Okay.
the next business meeting,
Okay.
we will go back one by
Mayor, you might
one.
want to allot some time for that, because there's some items on here that, whether it's, a national agenda or a state agenda, whatever, I think that we need to understand the context of it and what exactly we're requesting. I think a lot of it's pretty much, generic's probably a light term to use, but it's just kind of some of the stuff from the years in the past. Councilor Pugh and I were just talking about, I know she talked about the $5 destination fee. When Representative Smyrie was here, we talked about that, and he kind of gave us a signal that he was willing, if they couldn't repeal it, to try to find a way to lighten the burden or at least spread it out, maybe across several sectors. I think there's been some talk of that at the state level. But I would ask that if it could be, I think if the city attorney would kind of modify that in there and/or. I don't think Councilor Pugh has an objection to it, but might be a better way to make the request.
That's on the $5 destination
Yes, sir.
fee. Okay. Right?
You follow what I'm saying, right?
I'm going to get with the city attorney on it.
Okay. Okay. Well, you and I have talked about it before, but
This destination fee and the evacuee relief or something else?
no, we were talking about the $5 destination fee. Last year, we asked them to repeal it. I'm not so sure there's a lot of support for that, but if they repeal it, that would be great, being that we're a border city and it does affect our city. I think the statistics show that. What I was asking is a and/or, of a modification of that, if you would put in
And
there.
I think we put that in the list to repeal or modify this provision.
Maybe I didn't see the
That's the way
modified.
it should read.
Well, you might want to put in there to find a way to modify it to spread the burden.
Right. We had that in the explanation
I
draft.
think that's a conversation I had with our delegate head of the delegate, and he kind of seemed that he was in agreement.
Well, and according to what we have right now, and I'll get with you, Mr. City Attorney, but it asks to repeal it.
It was in one of the emails, repeal or modify to spread the burden of the fee, so we'll just have to dig it up.
Okay, we'll do that. If there are no other questions, Madam Mayor, on that, I'm
We've
done.
got the Mayor Pro Tem.
Is there anything in that legislation that mentions the fact about being a border state?
Well, it's not in in our explanation, we have that in there, but not in the legislation itself. But when we explain it, we want the delegation to know as they introduce, here's why we're asking, because we're at an unfair advantage as a border state. So it does read, it says, in addition, In Columbus and other cities near a border, it will give hoteliers in adjacent states a competitive advantage, is what we say.
Because even if they can't get it repealed, if they can do it specifically for those counties that for border states.
Sure. Gotcha.
Okay, all right, that's it.
And Madam Mayor, I know Councilor Davis and others were interested in the Department of Labor overtime ruling that is going to be effective in December. I think it's mid-December. But we want to talk to you about that.
Okay, Counselor Davis?
Maybe I should let the director speak to it, but I thought that this issue was being discussed at the national level and being delayed. Is that, no, it's not?
It's not been delayed.
Yeah, why don't you come on up, Ethan?
It continues to be discussed, Councilor Davis, at the national level, and a number of states have protested against it, but there is no official delay of the ruling from earlier this year in May. So we're going forward with it as everyone else, every other organization is going forward.
Did you just say in May?
The ruling came down from the Department of Labor in May of this year.
I'm not talking, I'm talking about most recent, I'm talking about the current session.
There has not been a change in this ruling. There has been discussion, as I understand it. There has been about 21 states that are protesting the ruling, but the ruling itself has not changed. The Department of Labor has not submitted any kind of change to the ruling as of yet.
That's right, you're right, but I did, somewhere I saw that they were delaying it on into next year for like 3 to months or further out into the next year.
There's not been an official delay unless
Okay.
it happened today.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Mayor, I'm going to have
Sure.
her to just explain.
Okay.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, and City Manager, and City Attorney. What Councilor Davis was asking about and speaking about is the Department of Labor ruling. In May of this year, the Department of Labor announced changes to the overtime rules under the Fair Labor Standards Act. This change took place on May 18th of 2016, and it affects or impacts over 4 million U.S. workers. The ruling is designed to ensure that workers are fairly compensated for the hours that they work, and that the changes will become effective on December 1 of 2016. The key provisions of the overtime ruling updates the salary and the compensation levels needed for white-collar workers. The executive, administrative, and professional levels only, and for those, of course, in that particular exempt category, are exempt and non-exempt employees. So it only impacts a narrow group of folks that are considered exempt, and it's the white-collar worker. The things that the overtime ruling does is it raises the salary standard or the salary threshold for those folks who are classified as exempt. Currently, the salary threshold is at $23,660 annually for an exempt employee. The new salary threshold come December 1 will be $47,476 annually. It also sets the total compensation for highly compensated employees to $134,004. The current annual salary is $100,000.
Director Hollowell, can you just go ahead and say so that people watching television and around the table know that this does not apply to public safety?
Exactly.
Can you just say that? Get that out?
Absolutely. This ruling by the Department of Labor will not impact law enforcement, fire employees, or emergency response personnel. It will not change anything for them. It does not impact them in any way.
Does not apply to them.
It does not apply to them. That's correct.
So I just want to get that out so that
Okay.
we,
Okay.
First Amendment.
So, and thirdly, it establishes a process to update the salary and compensation level every 3 years. So this annual salary that's being changed to 47.4 every 3 years, so in 2020, it will be updated. So employers' options are the following. Allow those employees who are now non-exempt and make less than 47.4 to become, are exempt and make less than 47.4 annually, allow them to become non-exempt employees. What that means then is we would be required to limit those employee work hours to 40 hours a week, or pay overtime or compensatory time at time and a half for any hours worked over 40, or a combination of overtime and compensatory time. Or we can raise the exempt employee salary level above the new threshold to $47,476 annually. The duties test for executive, administrative, professional exemptions, the white-collar workers that this impacts, the duty test does not change. The only thing that's impacting here is the salary test. So impact for local government, state and local governments must comply with this DOL ruling. State and local governments, unlike the private sector, can utilize compensatory time in lieu of overtime payment in order to compensate employees for time worked over 40 hours. Compensatory time or comp time is when you don't pay an employee in cash dollars, but you pay them in time off. So, this particular ruling also does not affect those hourly employees, employees that are part-time, temporary, seasonal workers. They currently may be paid overtime or compensatory time, and that does not change. As I stated earlier, this does not impact law enforcement, fire protection, and emergency response personnel who are paid comp time or overtime, because it's based on a work period. Their time is based on a work period rather than a 40-hour work week, so they are not impacted. Non-exempt employees who are eligible for comp time or overtime are not impacted. They would still be eligible for overtime or comp time. Those employees that are paid on a salary but are also non-exempt are still eligible for comp time or overtime, and they are not impacted. The implementation of the ruling, the process has been to review the current workforce, apply the salary test for those employees that are exempt versus non-exempt to determine whether they make more or less than the 47.4, and consider the budget impact. Cost analysis for those employees. There are 127 employees that are impacted, meaning there are 127 employees that are considered exempt but make less than 47.4 annually. The options are to move those employees to the 47,476. The cost of doing that would be $1,022,474. In order to keep those same employees on the UGA pay scale, it will cost an additional $30,000. And that total cost would be $1,053,287. Beginning in December of 2016, December 1, 2016, departments must pay overtime or comp time for those employees classified as exempt and make less than 47.4. Those departments should also or will also be required to monitor and record any overtime worked from December 1 of 2016 through March 31 of 2017. Positions classified as exempt and earn less than the 47.4 will be reviewed to determine their exempt or non-exempt status, and any adjustments will be addressed during the FY18 budget process.
and so, Director Hollowell, we have been working with departments for several months now, and they've been tracking.
Yes, that's correct. There have been two major department directors meeting where we have discussed the Department of Labor ruling in great detail. And departments have received a list of those employees in their department that will be impacted, those employees that are currently exempt but make less than the 47.4, so they know who those employees are, and they have identified those. They've had conversations with those employees that come December 1 of 2016, that their exempt level, their exempt status will change to non-exempt, and that any hours that they work over 40 in a given week, they will be compensated either by overtime pay or compensatory time pay, and that their time would be monitored from December 1 to March 31 to see how much overtime they are or are not working. And if those employees if they work a considerable amount of overtime, that will be considered in the budget, whether to move those employees to the exempt status level or allow them to stay at a non-exempt level and just pay them overtime or compensatory time when they work over 40 hours in any given week.
So, Mayor, we'll answer any questions, but, you know, we've identified the employees. We know the number of employees. Department heads have already started to track it, although the law has not kicked in yet. And then during the course of starting December 1st, that department head, division managers, got to know their budget. They've got to control the cost. They got to deal with comp time. And this is spread throughout the government, so it's not
Exactly.
in one single department, 127. And so if we see a need to make adjustments during the budget process, then we'd do it at that time. We'd submit it as part of the budget request to adjust those positions at that time.
We have Councilor Whitson.
Thank you, Rita, for the presentation. You know, I like to break it down to simple terminology. Let me give you an example and correct me if I'm correct or incorrect. Let's say we have someone that's on salary and it makes $32,000, let's say. Then what we're going to do is take them out of the exempt
Right.
and make them hourly, correct?
Non-exempt.
But their pay will not change. They're just now an hourly employee,
That's
which means now they have to clock in and clock out so that we could keep track of their hours.
Yes, and
Correct.
the departments may track their time in varying ways. Some departments do have a time clock where employees clock in and clock out, but that's not required. That's not a required method for every department. They can have different ways of how they track the time, but you're correct. Then yes, the time would have to be tracked now.
Yeah, I wasn't concerned about the tracking. I just wanted to make sure, because there's lots of conversation, not only in the government, but in the private sector on how it, how it works, how it will be determined. And so I wanted to make sure, you did a great presentation, but I always like to break it down to the simple A, B, C, and D. And that's why I was saying that, so that way those listening can understand better what it means. Now, let me ask you this. Let's say, and it's just a thought, let's say that they become hourly, okay? But the amount of overtime they makes them close to that, 47,000. Then that's when you're saying we'll come back and review them and just put them at exempt, because they're making that amount of money because of the time that they're spending at work.
That's correct. That's
Okay.
why the monitoring is important, so that if someone in a scenario that you mentioned they have to work or required to work numerous hours such that they're making now so much overtime such that it might make more sense to make them exempt or allow them to retain their exempt status, making at least a 47.4, and because you're going to pay them in the overtime one way or the other. So, yes.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
All right.
And I would really be disappointed if we learn that we've got a person who earns 33.
No, that's just an example.
No, I'm saying who earns that amount, and they have been working 30 hours overtime in a pay period, and we don't know about it, and because they would either be given comp time, obviously, or you would be not being fair to that person. And so we shouldn't have any huge surprises out there, is my point. 'Cause I would be disappointed if we find that someone's been working, instead of 40 hours a week, they've been working 55 hours a week as a salaried $33,000, $35,000 employee.
But, you know, but it happens. It could
Oh,
happen.
occasionally.
There are people that
Oh,
are
absolutely.
dedicated- You know, there are people that are dedicated to their job, that wants to shine in their department or, I mean, I'll be surprised too, but it does happen.
What?
There are people that go the extra mile
Yeah.
regardless of if they're paid, is because they have that sense of pride or work ethic.
Well, things come up every once in a while, but that shouldn't be a regular basis, is my point, you know. So we're going to monitor it. Any other questions, Mayor, on this?
Not at this time. no.
Okay. Then we'll continue to update you, and we'll do what we need to do during the budget process. That concludes my agenda, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. We have Counselor Thomas.
Mr. City Manager, we had a information item on, I think it was our last agenda from Ms. Newman about the traffic light at 3rd Avenue, that they were going to do a study. Has all of that started, or do you know if that's completed, or where we are on that?
We'll allow the Deputy City
Thank you.
Manager to address that.
Yes, we've looked at the traffic light on 14th Street and 3rd Avenue, and as part of the connection for the connection from the Fall Line Trace to the Riverwalk, and have determined that that traffic light at that particular intersection is not warranted. And so we have put up the variable message signs to let people know that that traffic light will be removed and replaced with the stop signs at 14th Street and 3rd Avenue.
And do you know when that light will be turned off, if you will?
We're looking at a 30 to 60-day window, but I can get you a specific date.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right.
That's it.
That concludes your agenda. We're moving on then to the Clerk of Council. Ms. Washington.
Madam Mayor and members of council, on the clerk's agenda, I have a few items of information we've received from the Columbus Public Health, their financial statement and compliance report for the year ending June 2016. Have a biographical sketch of Mr. Wayne Bond. This is the Historic Columbus Foundation's nominee for the Uptown Facade Board. Have a temporary street closing application that has been approved by the police department for November the 11th for the Columbus State Homecoming. And also we have a letter from Ms. Karen Smith. They are providing the recommendations from the Medical Center Hospital Authority for the seat of Dr. James Cross and Dr. Marion Douglas. Have two add-on resolutions to excuse Councilors Allen and Henderson from tonight's meeting.
Second.
Got a motion and second for approval. All those in favor, please state aye.
Minutes of various boards can be received.
Second.
Got a motion and second that the minutes be received. All those in favor, please state aye.
On our board appointments, on the Airport Commission, Mr. Chris Badcock's position term will expire the end of December. He is eligible. You've not made contact with him yet to see if he wants to serve. We will do that and let the council know. On our Board of Elections and Registration, Mr. U.D. Roberts' term will also be expiring the end of December. We have sent them a... I'm sorry? Yes, he is eligible. However, we must receive 3 nominations from the Republican Party, and then council will select from those nominations. On our Board of Health, Dr. Chokar is eligible to succeed herself.
Does she need to be resubmitted?
We've not heard back from her. Let me check. Do you know, Councilor Barnes? On our Board of Honor, Mr. Billy Watson, he's eligible to serve again, however, he does not want to serve again. On the Board of Tax Assessors, Mr. Lawton Grantham's term will be expiring the end of December as well. On our Board of Water Commissioners, Councilor Thomas, I'm sorry, Madam Clerk. Yeah, we will check with them to make sure that he wants to serve again. On the Board of Water Commissioners, Councilor Thomas has nominated Mr. Rodney Close to succeed Mr. Douglas' term when it expires the end of the year. He can be confirmed.
Got a motion and second to approve. All those in favor, please state aye. Are there any opposed? Oh, I'm sorry.
On our Civic Center Advisory Board, Councilor Woodson is still working on a replacement for Mr. Irving. And on our Columbus Aquatics Commission, as you know, we had discussion earlier, and I wanted to state that while we were here tonight, the Hurricanes have now submitted their representative, the name of Mr. Wes Kelly, and he can be confirmed if there are no objections from council.
We've got a motion and second for confirmation. All those in favor, please state aye.
Somebody was watching TV.
On our Convention and Trade Center Authority, the mayor is nominating Ms. Helena Coates to succeed Ms. Lane. She can be confirmed.
Confirmation.
Got a motion and second for confirmation. All those in favor, please state aye.
On our Cooperative Extension Advisory Board, the term of Ms. Maddie Washington will be expiring the end of December, and we will be making contact to see if she would like to continue to serve again. On the Historic and Architectural Review Board, we've made contact with the Historic District Preservation Society and are waiting on a response back from them. On our Hospital Authority, Mr. Ken Chong has resigned. We'll need 3 nominees for that seat. On the other 3 seats, Ms. Cynthia Jordan, Mr. Ernest Smallman, and Ms. Betty Tatum, as well as Mr. Edward Gaffney. Can we have a motion to go ahead and forward these names over to the authority?
Got a motion and second. All those in favor, please state aye.
Would you like for us to do that as well? Yes? Okay. Okay. We will do that. Oh. Well, yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Because they will, I'm sure, select one from those categories, so. But we've made contact with them asking for recommendations. We will follow up again to see if they have some recommendations for the council. On our Keep Columbus Beautiful Commission, I know Councilor Allen is working on a replacement for Ms. Ridley. Planning Advisory Commission, Councilor Davis has nominated through Councilor Garrett Mr. James Dudley to fill the unexpired term of Ms. Paige Swift, and he can be confirmed.
Got a motion and second for confirmation. All those in favor, please state aye.
On our Public Safety Advisory Council, Ms. Laverne Brown, who represents District 3, has resigned. Okay, and for District 5, Mr. Paul Voorhees, Councilor Baker is nominating Mr. Donald Watkins, and he can be confirmed.
Got a motion. Is there a second for confirmation? A second. All those in favor, please state aye.
On our Recreation Advisory Board, the seat of Mr. Jeff Battles, who represents the Muscogee County School District. He's eligible. We've made contact and are waiting to hear back from him. District 1, Mr. Andre Dye. Okay. We can go ahead and confirm Mr. Dye.
Got a motion and second for confirmation. All those in favor, please state aye.
For our District 2 seat, Mr. Gary O'Bruce has resigned. Counselor Davis will need another nominee from you. On our District 4, Mr. Willie Dickerson, Mayor Pro Tem, you want to renominate him? Okay. He can be confirmed.
Okay, got a motion and second for confirmation. All those in favor, please state aye.
And Councilor Woodson, District 7, Ms. Bell, I know she just went back on and she would like to continue.
Yes. Can you please renominate?
Sure. Motion for confirmation.
Yeah, motion for confirmation.
Got a motion and second for confirmation. All those in favor, please state aye.
And Mr. Hayden Barnes, District 8, I'm not sure if he wants to continue. We will check, and then we'll bring this back at our next meeting. On the Medical Center Hospital Authority. Okay. Okay. Got a motion for confirmation. Councilor Garrett.
Is there a second? All right, all those in favor, please state aye.
And then on the Medical Center Hospital Authority, as I indicated earlier, we have listed, the authority has submitted some recommendations for these seats outlined. Marion Douglas and for Dr.
Counselor Thomas?
I would, for the seat currently held by Marion Douglas, I would nominate Dr. Cross, Murray Solomon, and Tracy Sayers.
Okay. Are there any others? I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem. Actually, these recommendations, we will submit to the authority, and they will select, but you want to nominate the individual who is eligible, is that what you're saying?
On the other seats, you don't get 3 seats on these seats, right?
Yes.
Are you,
I think there were specific recommendations for that one. Okay. Okay, well, can we, we did, those that was just nominated by Counselor Thomas. That was the only one. And if it's council's desire to nominate those who are eligible, then we can submit 2 of those names from that list to forward to the authority. If that's what you desire, we can do that. Okay. But can I have a motion? No, Mayor Pro Tem was suggesting that the nominees that you just made for Marion Douglas' seat, she was asking that we also list those for 2 of those for Dr. McWhorter's seat and 2 for Marion Gerald's seat. Yes. Are there any objections to that?
all right, are we bringing it back? I think they're.
We will
wait,
outline it and bring it back
That's
at
what
our
I
next
thought.
meeting.
Okay. All right,
And if somebody else got some names that are on places, that's fine.
sure. Yes.
It seems that we could do this one like we have done some of the others, and for example, Mr. Steele's seat, we could nominate Mr. Steele, Dr. McWhorter, and Ms. Jarrell. And then for Dr. McWhorter's seat, nominate Ms. Jarrell,
Mr.
like we've done in the past, because the one that was listed for Mr. Douglas' seat, we have not voted on that one yet, so we don't know who's eligible, so.
All right, we will do that, and we'll outline it, and we'll bring it back at our next meeting. On our tree board, Mr. Frank Tommy, who represents the residential development, he is interested in serving another term if someone wants to renominate him. Also, Mr. Troy Kelly, he is interested in serving another term.
Does somebody want to? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'll nominate. And for Glenda Culpepper's term, Counselor. Second.
We got a motion and second for approval. All those in favor, please state aye.
For Ms. Beverly Kenner's seat, she would like to serve another term. Someone wants to nominate her?
Nominate her, sure, I will.
And Dr. Roger Brown is also interested in serving another
Nominate
term.
him,
Okay. Mhm. Okay, well, we'll nominate and then bring back the following week for confirmation. And for the Uptown Facade Board, the Historic Columbus Foundation is recommending Mr. Wayne Boyd. He can be confirmed.
All right, we've got a motion and second for approval. All those in favor, please state aye.
And then on the Valley Partnership Development Authority, Mr. Tyler Townsend has resigned, and council would need to nominate someone for this seat. And that's all I have. Dan Park? Okay. All right, we will bring this back at our next meeting for confirmation, and that's all I have, Madam Mayor.
All right, I believe that's it. We have Counselor Barnes.
This coming Saturday at the Frank Chester Center, the Iglesia de Dio Nuevo Pacto Church will be doing its health fair. It's a huge one. They give out food, they give out clothing, and they're going to have what's really difficult to get, free legal advice from the Fountain City Bar Association. So that's at the Frank Chester. It's coming Saturday from 10 until 2.
All right, sounds great. We've got motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'm sorry to wait.
That was the Mayor Pro Tem made a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All right, all those in favor, please state aye. All right, we are adjourned. See you next time.